The pre-Islamic Arabia, also known as the Age of Ignorance, was marked by diverse tribal cultures, religions, political systems, and a beautiful geography. Today, we will talk about the geographical condition of Arabia before Islam. The Arabian Peninsula, located at the crossroads of Asia, Europe, and Africa, forms a vast desert plateau, and at that time, it was no different. It is surrounded by the Arabian Sea on the south, Red Sea on the west, and the Persian Gulf on the east, although dominated by vast deserts with extremely dry climates, including the Rub al-Khali, or the Empty Quarter, and the Nefa Desert, both connected by the Dana. The Arabian Peninsula also has several mountain ranges, volcanic fields, and oases. Pre-Islamic Arabia also included the Syrian desert and the Fertile Crescent, stretching from Palestine in the west to the modern-day Iran. Other regions like Yemen, Oman, Madina, etc. also supported vegetation and agriculture. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the polity of the region. The population of pre-Islamic Arabia was divided into nomadic Bedouins and the sedentary settlers. The Bedouins made a significant portion, particularly in the Najd and Hijaz region. They were organized in strong tribal units, Kabbalah, and moved constantly in search of sustenance. The settlers included Al-Arab al-Baida, the extinct Arabs, Al-Arab al-Ariba, the pure Arabs, and Al-Arab al-Mustaraba, the Arabized Arabs. All of them were organized in strong tribal units, which shaped their political landscape. One of the strongest tribal confederations was that of Quraysh in Mecca, controlling much of the trade centers. There was no central power, and the Arabs never acknowledged any authority other than the authority of their tribal chiefs, leading to constant intertribal feuds. Kingdoms like Himyar in Yemen and client states, Ghassanids and Lakhmids, existed under the influence of larger empires like the Byzantine and Persian. Arabs were not just pagans before Islam. They were also Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, Hanafis, Sabians, etc. Polytheists constituted the majority of the population, and there were as many as 360 idols in the Kaaba. The first idol Hubal was brought by Amr bin Luhi, the chief of Banu Quzah from Syria, and after that idolatry became a trend and spread across Hijaz and Najd. The chief idol was Hubal, the moon god. Other prominent idols included Lat, Uzza, and Manat. The second largest religion was Christianity, dominant in the Levant, Bahrain, and Najran. Judaism was followed in areas like Khaybar and Yemen. Zoroastrianism was an ancient Iranian religion, popular in eastern Arabia. Ahura Mazda was the supreme being. Another significant religion was Hanifism, believed to stem from Ibrahim, alayhis salam. It was a monotheistic religion, adopted by some clans of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Next, we'll discuss the economic conditions of pre-Islamic Arabia. The basic economic activity was nomadic pastoralism. The arid climate favored grazing, and the most desirable animal for that was the camel, ship of the desert. Sheep and goats were also raised, and horses were used in cavalry. Agriculture. Syrian steppe was the cradle of agriculture. Iraq was a grain basket, and Yemen was known for terrace farming. Oases supported the growth of date palms, wheat, barley, legumes, and fruits. Flood water was stored for agriculture. Trade was an integral part of the economy. Pastoralists used to barter for agricultural products. Mecca was the center of business. Quraysh sponsored the trade caravans to Syria, Yemen, and elsewhere once in summer and once in winter. Markets like Souk-e-Ukaz, Majana, and Zul Majaz were held. International trade was prominent since antiquity. Goods like dates, leather horses, silver, gold, swords, etc. were exported. Sea routes went to India and China. Goods were taken to European markets from there, through the Mediterranean Sea. The society of the Age of Ignorance was primitive in character. It was steeped in materialism. People had little consciousness of higher morals and social values. Main virtues were loyalty to the tribe, to vindicate the honor of the tribe, and to glorify it. Vendetta was the highest religio-social obligation, which refers to vengeance of the murdered family members. Each tribe had its own unwritten set of laws, and following them was a must. The society was steeped in vices, superstitions, and barbarism. People were addicted to drinking and gambling. Usury was a popular practice, which increased the debt of the poor, as they had to pay dinar for dinar and dirham for dirham. Sins like adultery, robbery, fornication and prostitution were common. The society was deeply patriarchal, and women were used as chattels. Women's position in the pre-Islamic Arabia will be discussed separately in the next video. The women's position in the pre-Islamic period was that of chattels, items of property. They had no other status. They were used and thrown as pleased by the men. A man could marry as many women as he wanted, and after his death, his son could inherit all his father's wives except his own mother. The birth of a daughter was considered a burden and misfortune, which led to female infanticide across the Arab society. Even if a man did not want to bury his daughter alive, he would be compelled to do so due to this cultural practice. Women were sold for property and animals. Some women sold their bodies for money themselves. They practiced prostitution and flew flags on their houses and were called the ladies of the flags. Exceptions were the powerful ladies of some tribes, usually known by their husband's position only. Next, we'll discuss the conditions of slaves in the age of ignorance. Slaves were the spoils of war. They fell in the ownership of their imprisoners. The owner was the master of their lives and death. He could kill them, gift them to someone, or sell them as he pleased. Slave trades also took place, where a trader brought slaves from different regions and sold them for profit. If a person lost a bet with another, he would become the slave of the latter. Most of the owners were ruthless and treated their slaves brutally. Slaves lived in poverty and deplorable conditions as a result of hunger and deprivation. They were stripped of all their rights, and their lives were subjected to the owner's will. They were deprived of basic human rights and were brutally tortured if they showed their own will over something. They could only marry other slaves. That too, only with permission of their masters. Next, we'll discuss the poetry in pre-Islamic Arabia. Arab people possess the eloquence of language and brilliance of poetry. Arabs excelled in the outbursts of poetry. Writing was little, and fine poetry was preserved in memory. It was quoted freely. Poets were the molders of public opinion. They wrote pungent satires against hostile tribes and stirring verses to motivate people to action. They sang in glorification of their tribes and of love as well. They versified feats of bravery of their ancestors. They also wrote odes describing heroism of the people of their tribes in wars, and often projected immoral conduct as virtue. Famous poets included Imru al-Qais, Amr bin Kulthum, and Antara bin Shaddad. Scholars say that their odes surpassed Greek Iliad and the Odyssey in metrical complexity and elaborations. At the fair of Ukaz, the best poems were hung on the Kaaba. One such collection of poetry was the Mu'allaka, a collection of 7 poems. Next, we'll start the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.